a depiction from the Valley of the Queens around the years 1500 BC. Nefertari, seen over here. This is her tomb, or proposed tomb, a wife of one of the Ramesses kings. Osiris sits here. Some call this one Anubis, but that would be a Greek telling coming from much later time. Anpu would be a more correct way to say that, talking from through these guys' eyes. Appreciating this, it's beautiful colours seen there, brought to life. Beautiful. There's no way of appreciating it better than actually reading what it says. And there's no reason why we can't do that today. What we're seeing here is spiritual text, coffin text, pyramid text, but a text type called Proto-Egypt or Proto-Older Egypt ideogram text, where here it doesn't talk out from individual letters such as N and E and P and so on, a B and U, F and so on. Here it's talking out instead from what's called ideogram and logogram. So logos are images which are reserved for only one purpose, reserved for, well, in this case, spiritual things like this, Osiris. You don't see that used for just anything. It's used for him. It's a logo, as is McDonald's in their copyrighted logo. And the rest of them we're seeing here are ideograms, where one like, well, like this, isn't so much a T or an N. What we're looking at there is instead mistress. So an ideogram holds within its image, like a telegram, a story in a message, an idea in a telegram. Ideogram. Ideogram was reserved for the most spiritual things, unlike individual ABC tellings. So reading out from our already known sign lists and used text, well, let's have a read of this. Nice touch of Australia in the background there, a kookaburra going off. Let's see, it starts up here in the left. So up here, a symbol, a logogram, too often called as the Akhet. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, the Akhet is said as the journey from the mountain in the north to the mountain in the south. But if we use things like the Pen and Hesse papyrus, it tells us a little bit more. There they call it the furrow. And there is such a place. The Temple of Isis in the south apparently lays within a furrow between two walls. And it's my opinion that's what they're talking of here. So for today's exercise, we'll use the Pen and Hesse papyrus in its correct grammar, talking of the Akhet as the furrow. It will mean the same thing at the end of the day. So, let's read. This will be interesting. Appreciating through reading the actual written text left from the day. I'll try to be detailed. Between the furrow in the sacred lakes, imagine that like a swimming pool, but arriving between the furrow in the sacred lakes of a new beginning there. For the great Lord arriving over the horizon into the land of the Creator. Divinely given, this is interesting, into the sycamore forest. Notice there we're looking at a sycamore. It's a sycamore tree. The story told from old Egypt tells it that when one arrives on the other side of the Akhet, arriving there, one arrives into the sycamore forest where one's heart will be weighed before passing through the door. So again, between the furrow in the sacred lakes, a new beginning there, for the great Lord arriving over the horizon, coming into the land of the Creator, arriving divine into the sycamore forest. The door opens for the great chief. Breathing. Breathing. When the sun comes over the horizon, it brings with it a breeze. That's what they're talking of here. The door opens for the great chief, breathing there, for the great Lord of Rusto. Rusto, again, is an island, and again, it's mentioned in the Penhesi Papyrus and also in Giza's very famous Inventory Stela and other places. It's the place where that great chief, Osiris, we know, arrives every day back into his original abode where his remains are buried, apparently. And there he arrives home each day. So between the furrow in the sacred lakes, a new beginning there for the great Lord coming over the horizon. Osiris is coming back, arriving into the land divine, into the sycamore forest. The door opens as the great Lord breathes for the great Lord of Rusto, for the great mistress breathing into the face. This is interesting. The island is seen as facing east, as is the Sphinx, the same. So when that breeze and the sun comes over the horizon, it arrives, boom, into the face. So the great mistress breathes, arriving into the face of the original abode, the sanctum of nature, arriving inside of the great mistress. Inside is one thing, but there upon the original abode, the ancient scene there is a great tree they called Mari, and there the sun arriving over the horizon, coming through the Akhet, hit the highest branches of the greatest tree, went inside, hence inside, the great mistress went inside her, the tree of life. And from there it went down into the ground and gave new life into earth each brand new day. So there the great mistress breathing, arriving at the face of the sanctum of the original abode for nature, hitting the branches of the great tree, coming inside of mother, of a tep symbol for female, comes the medicine, the magic. So we're seeing an egg here, and an egg brings, of course, it was used for magic and used for medicine, but of course it brings a new beginning, new birth. The sun coming into the trees, going down into the earth brings new birth, the magic. Oh, this is interesting. Seen here by Anpu. Who's Anpu? Anpu is that great spirit that protects over the Isle of Rusto, over Mother, the tree of life. Seen as a serpent often, but not always. Can be seen as any morphed animal. And today we're seeing Anpu, their witnesses, and here he is. As we said, later many would call him Anubis, but he also appears in text as Anpu. And so he can be in serpent form as well, and does appear in serpent form in, say, the Book of the Dead and others. Anpu, his name. Here he is to witness what's going on here. What's he witnessing? Well, he's witnessing the heart of the great chief, the head. That's this guy over here. Arriving in that place, making a pot. A pot is used for the term making in the sense that one makes it with their own hand. And here underneath, a fan of a type, and the sort of thing we might use to cool a public official. You know, we were his servants, or again, you know, for the heart of the great chief arriving there, been made by his serpents within the furrow in Dijed. This is interesting. A same symbol exists, not leaning over like this one is, but straight up and down. It means home. This one, leaning over, means foreign land, that place across the sea. Talking often of, always in fact, as that place in the south, sacred place. So again, for the heart of the great chief arriving there, made by his serpents to arrive in the furrow in Dijed, land in the south. Importantly now, who is that servant that's helping there for this departed one to be judged in front of Ampu? Well, surprisingly, it's his heart. One's heart can tell on how good one has been in life, allowing whether or not they get into the afterlife at all. One's servant is one's own heart. And to why it is where sometimes we see a ruler holding their hand across their chest, stilling their heart, not to tell on them. The great Lord, the one who is true in truth, coming in the wind there, the great God of wind, arriving there, justified in truth, upon the sanctum of Ra, of the home of the great mistress in the western mountains. And science tells us too, it's remarkable how scientific the ancients were, you know, but from that actual place that is there in the south, the winds, the earth's currents do begin there. Shu, the creator of winds, you know, he does exist there in that sense, according to science. So science and the old text and passed down stories of that place, one confirms the other. The one who is true, he's had his heart weighed now, so he's true in his heart, been weighed. The one who is true. Upon the sanctum of Ra, at the home of the great mistress in the western mountains, just beyond the Isle of Rasto that we've seen here. In the distance are the western mountains. So, you know, the light carries on, hits the face of Mother there on the island, carries on over the western mountains and then out and across all the world. So the great Lord justified, seen there upon the sanctum of Ra, Rasto, the island, of the great mistress in the western mountains. Osiris seen here. Moving on. Correctly told, up high is the shepherd. Osiris, yes, and you can see his same shepherd staff there. It's him that's being talked of in his jurisdiction as the shepherd over mankind. Yeah, the first king of Egypt, advisor, ruler, him who carried the responsibility, important responsibility of, and we can see down here, look at that, unification, talking there of the churning milky waters. This is a logo symbol for the unification of the lands of the north and the south. India used a very, very, very similar thing, and the churning milky waters is important about that. And that's what this thing does. Look, it's a churn. Imagine holding the handles, turning it, you know, spinning everything around. So this is the timeline of chaos that once was the Kali Yuga, called by India and those of Indus Valley. And he reuniting and settling down the churny waters of chaos. Good old Osiris. So this dates him, of course, to the year 3142 BC, 5,160 years ago. Old story, isn't it? Just going back a little then. The great Lord Shu there upon the sanctum of Ra, the home of the great mistress of the western mountains, up high there, and he is, so he lives on that island up high. The shepherd in the secret written words. So here you've got a papyrus which is tied up in a knot. It's a secret, that secret magic that's made all this possible, that only he and people like him could bring about. So up high, the shepherd there in the secret written words with the great mistress in the company of the And that great mistress there, of course, is Nefertari herself, who's been brought there by that shepherd. Once again, that's his job, his jurisdiction, to guide his people home. The need of the first three sacred souls of old Egypt, in Osiris and Isis and Horus. Original a need, so in the company of the great gods or spirits, arriving on the horizon, coming into the land, a new beginning, divine into the sycamore forest of the western mountains, for the great spirit Natur, the mighty, there with the secret written words. Who is she? Hathor, the great mother, of course, the great mother of the Western Mountains. This is interesting, often taken as a ABC, individual letter delivery. Forget that stuff. We're talking ideogram. It's a hare. And what's important about a hare is that the greatest breeding done by rabbits and hares is when the land is fertile. And that's what it's talking about. Watch this. Hathor and the Western Mountains, a new beginning on the sacred waters. Most beautiful are those there for them, the great Lord. This is interesting too. Look, she's got a beard. Age-old logogram symbol hidden away there, and which is, of course, wisdom. If we take that back to Indus Valley, we see the desert dog there with a beard on his chin, you know. Ancient Australia, we see the morphed animal beast, a beard on its chin. Even the women rulers of Egypt, they had a beard on their chin. It's a symbol for wisdom. So Hathor and the Western Mountains, a new beginning and fertility, Wedjet if you like, on the sacred waters, for the most beautiful great Lord, the wise one there. And here we go, look at this, Osiris, meaning him. So he's this beautiful great Lord with this new beginning he's bringing. So Osiris sitting there. The difference between this and Osiris and, say, Isis would be, for a woman, we've got this symbol, a tep. And so if this were Isis, it would have a little woman symbol alongside. And I think I did see one there. Yeah, look at that up there. We'll come back to that yet, but here is Isis mentioned with that tep symbol. But here, of course, we don't have one, Osiris. So Osiris, bringing the most beautiful, purest of things. But this is interesting. We know Osiris and that business I mentioned about the stirring of the milky waters and uniting the lands. This story is 3142 BC. This, of course, which we're reading, is 1500 BC, time of Ramesses and Nefertari. But here, they very cleverly, when they say this, look, Isis bringing the most beautiful things, talking of oils and things one puts into funerary products and so on, or into the land, water and so on. But look at that, the red and black pots. So these are the red and black pots that we see in the Nakata period. So very clever they are, in bringing the story back to 3142 BC. So over 1500 years earlier, than her time, but cleverly, taking us back. The red and black pots that we see, imports or sharing, from, we also see this in Tamil Nadu, India, and Indus Valley. Indus Valley, same period, 3142 BC. Tamil Nadu, of course, is controlled by government policy. Nothing there is said to be older than 300 BC. It needs to be. It doesn't need to be, but it's a way of calming dissent and violent debate over there, stopping all from a constant argument of a dominance for first. Sad. But so we look at Indus Valley, same period, at least there, it's safe. It's these things, 3142 BC, as they are in Egypt in Nakata period, this guy's first arrival in Egypt. So Isis there, from the old days, let's say, 34123 BC, are on the sacred waters, breathing. There's that two digits again for breath, into the house of the great mistress, arriving on the face. Let's have a look at that again. There it is, and this time you can actually see her mouth open too, so she's breathing that new purest beginnings that Osiris brings as he comes over the horizon, breathing into the house of the great mistress upon the face when it hits the Isle of Rasto, arriving at the front. Moving up. Oh, look at that, that's lovely. Up here, easily confused with Osiris, seeing an eye there, but it's not like that. What it's saying is he's there, he's seeing, so the gods are seeing, so seen by the great spirits in the south, this woman at the seat of Isis. So this woman is arriving in this place, the seat of Isis, the great one, the great Lord, the great mistress arriving over the horizon comes Nefertari. Wonderful, isn't it? Oh, look at that. Mat reigns. So Mat is balance, evenness, measure. And there where the Isle of Rastro lies, and the Temple of Isis, as it's told of in things, again, like the Inventory Stela in Giza, they exist on a line of Mat. It's a northwest line, and that's what they're saying here, is that now she arrives, but she's arrived on the line of Mat. Mat reigns there, the great Nutter, mighty in the secret written words. Is there more? Oh, yes, there is. Oh, look at that. Oh, we see this one a lot. And Book of the Dead, especially funeral texts, I always carry this. Health. Seen as like nurturing, so nurturing a new baby, if you like. So health. Newer life. People think this means life. It doesn't. Well, it does, but it means newer life. These people never died, as we all don't. Our light of life never dies. So at this time, passing from one life to another, as she's about to, she's not given life, she's given newer life. So health, newer life, dijed, strength, dependability. And what's remarkable about this one is, again, it's the tree, the 4 branches of the tree of life, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the tree of life, holds up the cycle of man, and ancient, her trunk huge, dependable, strong. And of course she is in the land of Dijed in the south, hence the Dijed symbol, the symbol of strength and durability. So giving in to her, witnessed by Anpu over here, Anubis later on when Greek influence applied, and Osiris, she's given protection and nurturing, health, good health, newer life, strength. And look at this, something that's very special. She's also given a job. She's given a jurisdiction there in the land of the dead, if you like, the underworld, but a job. So giving her health, newer life, strength, dependability, and reigning, giving her a job. Oh, the 4 sons of Horus seen here. Talked about those a moment ago, didn't we? Oh, there's more too down here. So they too, and the 4 sons of Horus are always there to witness such an event, And as they went into mythology and lore, the 4 sons of Horus, in many ways represented on the tree of life. Those 4 branches seen there upon the tree of life, they're a part of that. So the 4 sons of Horus held up the boughs of the tree of life, which holds up the earth. They play a very, very important part. Well, some more seen here. Didn't see that down the bottom. Oh, Seneb. That's interesting. Often said as Seneb, and there was a Seneb. There was a Seneb the dwarf, which was a 4th dynasty, but it's nothing to do with him. In this way here, we've got upon the sacred waters, the written secret words turned sideways and again tied up the bundle. You can't see or read them because you're not a magic man. You're not allowed to do that. So upon the sacred waters, upon the secret written words, in that place is the name of this great Lord, within much love for a heart, the great mistress, the great Lord. So her name has gone on to the tree of life, which we've seen way back here when they first arrived there into the sanctum of Ra and Mother. So when a ruler passed, and should they be justified, their name was placed upon the tree of life, allowing next for them to enter through that door in the true truth, making up Anpu's name. And so going back to that, yes, Neb. So here we are. So there upon the sacred waters with the secret written words, in that place is her name. And that's the secret hidden words, like you're not going to see her name there. It's a secret of this great Lord, given the greatest love for her heart of this great ruler, this great Lord of this pretty, in the place of the sacred rushes there, arriving there. So the sacred rushes, again, if we go back to the Book of the Dead and we look at stories like, let me think of one, Horus of Gold returns home. So in Horus, because Horus too, of course, is a part of Osiris, and when he returns home to that Isle of Rusto. He returns there to the isle, or the mound, look at it there, there it is, upon the sacred rushes. There. Wonderful, isn't it? So if it was already pretty enough, now we can appreciate through knowing what they're talking about. The understanding of Proto-Egypt ideogram text unfolding Egypt's golden age. The understanding of Proto-Egypt ideogram said, read this way. Reading it as easy as I read a newspaper. This is a new thing as well. Only came to us recently in the year 2014 here in Australia from unfolding a great mystery there, the sacred forest of Bambara, the most traditional sacred place for the custodians of Australia on the east coast. And there these same texts were found and for the first time unfolded, and what it did for us was that great sharing gave us this, that now we can read Old Egypt's text, that last bastion of unknown Egypt's text that never could be read until 2014, unfolding all those many things now in Egypt that we see today, knowing who was who and what the Sphinx for and who built Giza and why they built it. All those wonderful things all came from the great sharing of the sacred forest of Bambara, Australia, 2014. Colin Hayter, that's me of course, and Kylie Frew, my brilliant researcher of Cairns. Together we first unfolded that, turning into a sovereign initiative taken on by the Sovereign United Nations of Australia to pull it off and pull it into fact, gifting us these wonderful things we can know today. Thanks for listening today. Beautiful, isn't it?